If you've been paying attention to the news at all, you may have noticed it looks like much of the world has financial trouble brewing on the horizon. These recent events have wreaked havoc across the earth. In the United States alone, it's estimated that nearly 11 million people have filed for unemployment in just the past couple of weeks, and it seems like that number is on the rise. However, this isn't completely unprecedented territory, although it certainly presents new challenges. There have been dozens of million and billion-dollar government bailouts to help get people and/or companies back on their feet in times of economic hardship in the United States. Many assume that this current bailout will be the most expensive ever. Today, we're going to take a look at the most expensive bailouts in history and see just exactly how well they worked out for us. Perhaps it'll lend a little perspective on what we're in for the coming months. Number 5. AIG Bailout. 07-08 was not a great time period. I was living abroad in Australia, relaxing on the coast, and let me tell you, fashion and music were in a terrible place. People were wearing vests and fedoras that didn't match, and that awful screaming music was so popular. Oh, and the recession crumbled the United States. There are quite a few bailouts from the recession on my list, but we've got to work our way up to them. Bailing out recessions doesn't come cheap after all. The AIG bailout in September of 2008 cost a whopping $182 billion. American International Group was, at the time, one of the world's largest insurance providers, and the United States government feared that their demise would lead to the demise of several others. When no private companies would loan to AIG, the government stepped up with the $182 billion bailout, the largest in history for a company. Of course, this bailout came with conditions. The CEO was forced to resign. In return for the interest-bearing 2-year loan, the United States took a 79.9% equity in AIG as collateral, which lowered their risk in the transaction. This became the first time in history that an insurance company was owned by the U.S. government. It took some time, but AIG was able to bounce back on its feet, and the Department of Treasury was able to sell off the last of its stock in 2012. Number 4. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Like I said, 2008 was a rough time. Being a homeowner in 08 was even worse. And being a mortgage lender, well, it wasn't great. But at least you could get a little helping hand from the government. Or if you're Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, you can get $187 billion of a bailout. A bit ironically, Fannie Mae was established as a response to the Great Depression way back in 1938. Both Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are government-sponsored entities that were intended to expand the secondary mortgage market. But after the housing crisis, the two companies' value dropped 90%. Both companies went under conservatorship of the United States government on September 7, 2008, and were provided with the $187 billion loan. Since then, the two companies have managed to pay the government back more than $300 billion combined. Number 3. The Financial Institutions Reform, Recovery, and Enforcement Act. It wasn't just the mid-2000s that sucked for the United States. In the mid-1980s, when my hair was at my shoulders and my jeans were skin tight, the United States was faced with a slow-moving, almost unexpected crisis, the savings and loan crisis, which ended in a bailout that cost the United States $293.3 billion. The Saving and Loan Institutions, or S&Ls, if you want to sound smooth, were a group of conservative lenders that made mortgage, car, and personal loans after the Vietnam War came to an end. A rise in interest rates in the early 1980s brought a recession and sparked the flames that would become the dumpster fire that was the savings and loan crisis. Ooh, that was a mouthful. Deregulation of the S&L industry, along with fraud that followed due to this deregulation, essentially bankrupted the entire industry. Between 1985 and 1996, half of all S&L companies, nearly 1,600 companies, went under. Loan defaults in the United States skyrocketed into the billions. To help resolve this, the government enacted the Financial Institutions Reform, Recovery, and Enforcement Act of 1989, which included that $293.3 billion bailout. Number 2. The Emergency Economic Stabilization Act. We've talked about a few of the bailouts of 2008. We explored AIG and good old Fannie and Freddie. But we haven't even looked at the most expensive bailout of 2008. That's right, the one you're all thinking of. The bank bailout, or Wall Street bailout, was expected to cost the United States $700 billion, though recent estimates place the actual amount somewhere around $475 billion. The recession in 07 and 08 caused a failure or near failure of almost every bank in the United States. It was quite a wild time, and though I was hoping I'd never have to go through anything similar again, well, here we are. In response to the chaos of almost every big bank failing, the United States created the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or TARP. TARP allowed the Treasury to purchase toxic, non-performing assets from companies, such as mortgages, college loans, and auto loans, as well as a very broad other category. The Troubled Asset Relief Program was ended in 2014, when a return on investments was provided and the United States sold its remaining holdings. Number 1. The Homeowners Refinancing Act. Pop on some swing music and maybe stare forlorn out onto the distance, because we're finally gonna chat about the Great Depression. It was 1929 into the 1930s. Dust storms were happening. The stock market took a nosedive. Unemployment reached a record high of 25%. It was an aptly named depressing time, and the government needed to do something to get the United States out of it. The New Deal was the name of the game, and part of the New Deal was a little act called the Homeowners Refinancing Act. The act was created to help struggling homeowners and would-be homeowners by providing them with loans and refinancing mortgages. It proved to be the most successful and expensive element of the New Deal, costing the United States $3.2 billion, which is the equivalent of $750 billion adjusted to inflation today. That was nearly 5% of the GDP of the United States at that time. The Homeowners Refinancing Act was operational from 1933 to 1936, during which time 1 in 4 homes were financed by the United States government. Fortunately, the United States was able to recover in time, and the Homeowners Refinancing Act significantly changed mortgages and homeownership in America forever. So, there you have it, the 5 largest bailouts in United States history. Thanks for sticking around for this little history lesson with yours truly. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to see more of these educational-style videos. As always, thanks for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and come back and check us out next time. I'm Mr. Luxury. Pip pip, da doodly doo.